The Kingdom, a rough draft by future Miss Jordan Emily Merring. Chapter 1. We need to tear down all idols. Open your Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 5 and to chapter 6, verses 1 to 16. ESV translation. When the Philistines captured the ark of God, they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. But when they rose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both of his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. This is why the priests of Dagon and all who entered the house of Dagon do not tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. The hand of the Lord was heavy against the people of Ashdod, and he terrified and afflicted them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. And when the men of Ashdod saw how things were, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is hard against us and against Dagon our God." So they sent and gathered together all the lords and the Philistines, and said, "What shall we do to the ark of the God of Israel?" They answered, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath." So they brought the ark of the God of Israel there. But after they had brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city, causing a very great panic. And he afflicted the men of the city, both young and old, so that tumors broke out on them. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. But as soon as the ark of God came to Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, "They have brought around to us the ark of God of Israel to kill us and our people." They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, "Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us and our people." For there was a deathly panic throughout the whole city. The hand of God was very heavy there. The men who did not die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. The ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners and said, "What shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us with what we shall send it to its place." They said, "If you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but by all the means return him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand does not turn away from you." And they said, "What is the guilt offering that we shall return to him?" They answered, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For the same plague was on all of you and on your lords. So you must make images of your tumors and images of the mice that ravaged the land, and give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will lighten his hand from you, and our gods and your land. Why should you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? After he had dealt severely with them, did they not send the people away, and they departed? Now then, take and prepare a new cart and 2 milk cows, on which there has never came a yoke, and yoke the cows to the cart. But take their calves home away from them, and take the ark of the Lord and place it on the cart, and put in a box at its side, and the figures of gold which you are returning to him as a guilt offering. Then send it off and let it go its way, and watch. If it goes up the way to its own land, to Beth Shemesh, then it is he who has done us this great harm. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that struck us. It happened to us by coincidence." The men did so, and took the 2 milk cows and yoked them in the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they put the ark of the Lord on the cart, and the box with the golden mice and images with the tumors. And the cows went straight in the direction of Beth Shemesh along the highway, lowing as they went. They turned neither to the right nor to the left, and the lords of the Philistines went after them as far as the border of Bethshemesh. Now the people of Bethshemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And when they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. The cart came into the field of Joshua of Bethshemesh and stopped there. A great stone was there, and they split up the wood and the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was beside it, in which were the golden figures, and set them upon the great stone. And the men of Bethshemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices on that day to the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned that day to Ekron. No idol can stand against the Lord our God. God had destroyed Dagon. God had destroyed Dagon's people because they placed an idol up who was not meant to rule over them. God of Israel is the God of all nations. He is our one true living King. Jesus Christ is sovereign. Jesus commanded us to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. We are to have no other thing before him. An idol is anything, anyone, or any idea we put before God. That thing then becomes our God and kicks the one true living God from the throne of our hearts. Friends, do you have any idols today? Perhaps a TV addiction, video games, social media, work, food, maybe coffee, or maybe music. Maybe you're just a little too much into the metal scene. Anything that you might put before God? Luckily, there is a test that God provided for us in the Bible to tell whether something serves as an idol or not. Abraham longed diligently for a son, and was not given one until a very old age. The Lord sent out to test Abraham another time. He wanted to know if Abraham truly loved him. So God told Abraham to sacrifice his only son Isaac as a testimony for Abraham's love to God. Why did God ask this? He wanted to know if Abraham was willing to give up the one thing he loved most for the sake of his love for God. After God saw that Abraham would sacrifice his son, that is when God had mercy and sent a different sacrifice for Abraham to give God. So what is the test to see if something is an idol? To see whether or not that we would give that thing up for God. When I was a Catholic, though I do argue Catholics are pagan, my favorite holiday was Lent. Every Fat Tuesday, you would have to fully decide what you would give up for 40 days before Easter. This wasn't about making you holier or that you were better for doing it. It was a tradition that you did not tell anyone what you gave up. It would be between you and God. You were always encouraged to give up whatever you loved most. I had a big stuffed brown Labrador I would sleep with every night when I was 8 years old. I thought that I could not sleep without it. So one year for Lent, I gave up my stuffed animal. I tucked him under my parents' bed and said goodbye. The first few nights were very hard. I would pray instead of hug my dog. But after a week or two, it became easy. The prayer started to be the lullaby that would drift me off into sleep. After 40 days, I didn't even want the stuffed animal anymore, and I developed a habit of prayer before bed. Personally, I used to love the Catholic religion. I was devoted to it. When God called me out and told me to give it up, it really hurt. I felt at first that I was going to lose part of my identity, if not the entirety of it. But then I realized that I loved Jesus more than any one denomination. And though it was hard, I had to go. He destroyed my idol just like he did the statue of Dagon. Sometimes, God is asking us to give up what we love most because he knows it is best for us and the purpose he has set out for us. When we seek to gratify our own will in our likes and desires, even if we think we are working for God, we may not be. Other times, God asks us to give up what we love to see if we will do it. And once we do, he will utilize what we love for the advancement of his glory. As some of you may know, I was a political theorist and political philosopher in college. My goal was to take the knowledge and move to get a PhD and to teach at a university. But where my will said yes, God's will said no. He asked me to give up that dream. And like most things, when God asks me, I say yes. Fortunately, with asking me to give up that dream, He has still allowed me on a daily basis to use the knowledge I had acquired for the advancement of His glory. Seeing my love for Him, He let me keep Isaac because He knew it was no longer an idol in my life. That is why I want to survey the history of political thought, to sort out the idols of my secular education and replace them with the one true living God. In this, together, we will develop the kingdom mentality. Siphon idolatrous thought through a cistern to create drinkable water using the one true living source. I challenge you as you read or listen to this. Think of one thing you love: music, food, infatuation with a person, or whatever that you feel like you cannot live without. For the next 40 days, as Jesus did in the desert, I challenge you to give that item up. And whenever it comes to mind, pray instead, starting first thing as you listen or read, either for the 40 days or by the time you're done reading this book, whichever happened first or later. Test yourself to see if you love God above all things. We cannot afford to be lukewarm Christian. God will spit us out of His mouth like the church at Laodicea. We must have the fire of the Holy Spirit in all that we do, and that we can only happen when we tear down the strongholds of the enemy and do not allow idols to live in the throne of our hearts. It is not the thing you love that are the problem, but rather the degree to which you allow that love to take precedence over God and His will for your life. Do you find this hard to do? Then place God on the altar where your idol is and watch Him smash it on the floor. What you cannot do, God can. End chapter 1.